What's up? What's up? This is Mr. Kinzer, and welcome to my 6th grade FAST 2024 edition test. This is going to be part 1 of a 2-part series where I have last year's, the 2024 test, and I've got it right here in front of me. And I'm going to go over all the standards and all the questions that you might see on the 2025 test. Of course, the questions want to be exactly the same because they change them every year, but these are last year's questions. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, question 1 says, Jackson has a weekly reading goal. He needs to read for at least 2 hours to meet his goal this week. Write an inequality that models R, the number of hours Jackson needs to spend reading this week. All right, so he needs to spend at least 2, so that means he could be reading for 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, but definitely not 1. So his reading time is going to have to be greater than or equal to 2 hours. So it's going to be R is greater than or equal to 2. So that's going to be D. Easy enough. All right, number 2. The number 84 is 35% of what number? There's really 2 ways to do this. The first way is to use the the percent proportion. So you go ahead and you have to have this memorized. This is not on the FAST reference guide. So it's percent over 100 equals part over whole. And within problems like this, sometimes you'll see words such as is and of. The part is always the is, and the whole is always the of. And the way I remember that is because there's an O in whole, and there's also an O in of. So that just helps me to remember that. But anyways, here's the formula. This is the percent proportion formula. You need to have this memorized. And basically, you just go through the problem, and wherever you see the numbers, you put it into the formula. So it says the number 84 is. So the 84 will go to the is spot. And the percent is 35. The 35 will go to the percent spot. And then it says of what. So the x is the what. So the x goes to the of spot. So now you just fill this in, and then you solve the proportion. So percent is 35 over 100 equals, and 84 is the is, so that goes on top, 84, and the what is going to be the x, and that goes with the of. So here is my proportion. All right, so I've got 35 over 100 equals 84 over x. All right, so now remember, to solve a proportion, multiply the diagonal, and then divide the leftovers. So I'm going to jump over here on my calculator. All right, and I'm typing in 100 times 84. And I get 8,400, and then I go ahead and I hit divide 35. And my final answer is x equals 240. All right, so I can see the answer is C. All right, there is another way to do this, though, as well. The other method is writing an equation. So this is the equation method. The equation method is you just read the problem from left to right and write the equation. So it says the number 84. So I'm going to write that first. Is. Whenever you see the word is in math is an equal sign. All right. 35%, so I need to write that. But remember, when I write a percent, I need to write it as a decimal, so that's 0.35. And whenever you see the word of written in math for an equation, of means multiply. All right, so I'm going to multiply. I put a dot there for multiply, not a decimal, it's a multiply, times x. All right, so this is the equation method. 84 equals 0.35 times x. Well, what is the opposite of multiply? The opposite of multiply is divide. So divide on both sides, the left and the right. Whatever you do to the left side, you got to do the right side. So I'm dividing 0.35, divide 0.35, and divide 0.35. On the right, it cancels. So it cancels out 0.35 and 0.35. They disappear. All right, but now I'm going to jump on my calculator to get the final answer. So I type 84 4 divide 0.35 equals x equals 240. All right, so either method will work. I prefer this method, but you also need to know how to write and solve equations, so this way also works. All right, moving on. Number 3, we've got a histogram. Remember, a histogram is like a bar graph. So it says the histogram shows the inches of rainfall per day in a town for 1 month. All right, which sentence below best describes the distribution? All right, so we've got the distribution has a gap. Well, looking up here, I don't see any gaps. A gap is wherever there's nothing going on, and I see there's definitely bars all the way across. So it's definitely not A, so no. The distribution is skewed. Skewed is whenever there's a tail that kind of stretches off in one direction, either towards the left or to the right. Like a skew will look like this, where the tail, that's called skewed left, where it goes really far to the left. But this is perfectly symmetric. It goes up and then it comes back down. All right, so it's no on this one as well. All right, C, the distribution is symmetric. Well, I just said that above, so starts low and then it goes up and goes high and then it comes back down and it's perfectly symmetric. All right, so I'm going to pick C. I already know that's the answer, but let's read D just in case, because we also need to know what this says. And D says the distribution contains an outlier. Remember, an outlier is a data point that lies really far outside of all the rest of the points. So for example, I have 0, 0.25, 0, 0.50, 0, 0.75, 1, 1.25. An outlier would be like if I had way out here, and I'm just kind of making this up here, at like 2, and I had 1 bar way out here. But then in between here and going out to there, I have nothing going on. So this would be an example of an outlier out here. All right, so I don't have an outlier. I just made that one up. But if I did have that out there would be an outlier. So this, again, is no. So the answer is C. All right, good job. Moving on. All right, it's problem number 4. Here we have a net. Whenever you see a net, you've got to calculate surface area. Surface area is like thinking back to like wrapping presents for Christmas. It's how much wrapping paper goes around the present. So this shape is a pyramid. Like if I was to draw it in 3 dimensions, it would look like this. All right, see what I mean? It's a pyramid. But then when you open it up, it turns into this star-shaped diagram. So what they want you to do is figure out what the total area is for all of these pieces. You've got 1 square and 4 triangles inside of this net. All right. Let's start with the square. That'll be the easiest. Area for a square is length times width. So I've got 10 times 10. So I'm just going to write 100 inside of here just to keep track of it. 10 times 10 is 100. All right, and now all of these triangles are going to be exactly the same. They're all equal. So I've got 10 and I've got 12. You've got to remember the formula for area of a triangle. So I'm going to write it down here. I want you guys to write it down as well and have it memorized. It's not on the reference sheet. So area equals 1/2 times base times height. All right. Another way you can also write it is area equals base times height divide 2. Either way, it works either way. All right, so I've got 10 times 12. That'll be 120. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out. 10 times 12. I still have the divide 2 afterwards. All right, so 10 times 12 is the 120. And then you divide 2, and you get 60. All right, so now I know that this 60 is the area of just one of these triangles. So I've got 60, 60, 60, and 60 in all 4 triangles. So now since I have all of my shapes, all the areas for all my shapes, now I can add them all up. I've got 100 plus 60, 60, 60, and 60. So when I add that up on the calculator, well, let's start with the 60s. There's 4 triangles, so let's just multiply it by 4 times 4. And you get 240, and then I add the 100 plus 100. And 340 is the final answer. So that's 340 meters. And we are in the second dimension. Area is always in the second dimension. So you got to put a 2 above it. All right, so that's our final answer. And then if we were on the fast, we'd go ahead and type it into this box, 340. And we also got to include the units. So make sure you do that. All right, moving on. We're on to number 5. All right, select all the expressions that have a value of 18. Well, it looks like we've got absolute value. Remember, the way absolute value works is anything inside of an absolute value turns to a positive number. For example, if I have a positive 4 inside of my absolute value, it stays as a positive 4. All right, and as another example here, if I have an absolute value of a negative 2 inside of my absolute value, then this also switches to a positive. So positives stay positive, negatives flip to a positive. That's the way absolute values work. All right, and then the way that it was absolute value, that's how you spell it, to make sure you remember what that is. All right, so now this is pretty easy. So it's 14 minus 4 is 10. No. This is going to flip to a positive 2. So 16 plus 2. Yes, 18. 16 plus 2 is 18. All right, this is going to flip to a positive 24. And that's going to stay a positive 6. So this one's just going to be 6 plus 24. All right, so that's going to be a 30. And that is no. So we've got no on A, and we've got no on C. All right, so far, 18, yep, we definitely are going to bubble in B. So far, that's all we're bubbling is B. All right, up next, we've got 20 minus positive 2 once you flip it. So it's going to be 20 minus positive 2. All right, that stays positive. That flips to a positive 2, so it's 20 minus positive 2. And that will be 18. So let's go ahead and bubble that one as well. All right, and the last one here, I've got negative 27 absolute value will flip to a positive 27. And then we add it to a positive 9 absolute value. So that will be 36, so that is also wrong. So now we are completely finished. Guys, again, this type of problem is called multi-select. Multi-select means that you need to bubble multiple answers in order to get it right. If you bubble anything wrong, the entire problem is wrong. So I had to perfectly bubble B and D in order to get this one right. And basically you can't guess on these. If you try to guess on these, you're going to get the whole problem wrong. You have to be perfect and very careful whenever you do these problems. All right, moving on to number 6. On a baseball team, 7 players are in 6th grade and 10 players are in 7th grade. What is the ratio of the number of players in 6th grade to the total number of players? So the first thing I need to figure out is what is the total? Total means add. So the total number of players is going to be 7 plus 10. So the total is 17 players. All right. So again, we are looking for the ratio of the number of players in 6th grade. So 6th grade is 7 players in 6th grade. So I'll circle it just so you can see it. So that's going to be 7 first, and then you compare it to, so they want the number of players in 6th grade to the total number of players. So we're going to use the colon. Why? Well, because all the answers are using colon. But also, by the way, you could also write this answer 2 other ways. You could have write it as a fraction, 7 to 17, or you could have also written it as using the word or sorry, my bad, not or, the word 2, 7 to 17. So all 3 of these answers are correct. 3 different formats to write a ratio. All right, so we are going to pick this one, 7 to 17. That's letter C. Alrighty, good job. All right, moving on. Number 7. What is the value of negative 133 minus 42? All right, well, the first thing I notice is that there is a negative in front of 133, and there is also a subtract, which is also a negative in front of the 42. All right, so there's a rule whenever you're adding and subtracting with integers. If the signs are the same, then we add the numbers, and we keep the sign of the numbers we were working with. So we have a negative and a negative, so they're both negatives. So we're going to actually add here. All right, so you're going to add 133 plus 42, and you get, what is that, 175? Let me just make sure. So I'm going to type in my calculator. So I got 133 plus 42. All right, good. But they both had negatives, so we need to keep our negative because we are working with negatives. And we add these two numbers together, and you get 175. All right, so that's my way of doing it in my head. If the signs are the same, you add. Keep the sign of the number you're working with. But if that confuses you, which is something you definitely need to know how to do that. But if that still confuses you, don't worry, just use your calculator. So this is how you do it on your calculator. All right, so I have a negative 133. First thing you're going to do is type in the 133. And we need to make this a negative number because there's a negative in front of it. So I'm going to hit the plus minus button on my calculator on the bottom left. Now you can see my calculator, it's negative 133. Then I hit minus 42. And I hit equals. So as you can see, I also get negative 175, whether I do it in my head or whether I do it on the calculator. All right. Good job. Let's flip the page to the next problem. And we are on problem number 8. All right. So it looks like we've got a coordinate plane. We've got some points here. And it says match each point with its coordinates. Well, here's point K. So the first thing before we do this, you have to memorize this, all right? You've got your x-axis and you've got your y-axis. X goes first in a coordinate point. Y goes second. All right. All right. So the x tells you to go right or left because it's on the horizontal axis here. So a positive number goes to the right, and a negative x goes to the left. All right, now our second number within our coordinate point is called the y. The y goes up or down. A positive y goes up, and a negative y goes down. So you need to memorize that and remember that for whenever you do these points. So I'm looking at k here. K is 1 left, and it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots on the grid, but the grid isn't to scale. This is actually a -1, and that's a +1. So in between, you're going to get decimals. And so how many marks do I have in between 0 and 1? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So first of all, let's figure out what the decimal is for each of these marks. How do I do that? Well, I take the 1 that I'm working with, and I divide it by 5. And if you do that on a calculator, by the way, you should know this in your head, but if not, type it in your calculator just so that you have got it. So I take a 1. That's the 1 right there, and I'm dividing it up into 5 marks there. All right, 0.2. So this is going to be 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8. All right, and then finally 1. All right, so K. K is -1 left. All right, so that's +1. That's not -1. That's not -1. That's -1. So I know this is the answer already. All right, but it's also going to be 3 marks down. And remember, I said every single time you move a mark, you're moving 0.2. So you're going -0.2, -0.4, and -0.6. So that's how this actually works, like this. So that's why, yes, that is the answer. All right, so now we're moving on to point L. And point L is over here. So how far left is it? Well, it's 1, 2, 3 grid marks on our coordinate plane. So that's going to be, remember, every time you move it's 0.2. So it's 0.2 negative, negative 0.4, and negative 0.6. All right, so already I see that answer is going to be, it's either one of these two because I see negative 0.6 for both of these. All right, but then it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again, 5 up will be the positive one, so it's going to be this one, because since it's positive. See what I mean? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mark F as well. Make sure you guys have got that. Very good. All right, moving on. We're on to number 9. Richard uploads 1/6 of his photo library to a file sharing site in 1/2 minute. If the upload continues at the same constant rate, what fraction of Richard's photo library can he upload per minute to the file sharing site? All right, so Richard uploads 1/6 of his photo library to the file sharing site every 30 seconds. So now he's going to keep on uploading. What fraction of these files can he upload in 1 minute? Well, there's a couple ways to do this. So if he does this much in 30 seconds, well, in 1 minute, he's going to do double this, because then 1/6 would be for, the 30 seconds, which is 1/2 of a minute. So you can also call it 1/2 of a minute. So then if I double this, that means multiply it by 2, so you're going to get 2/6. All right. And that's going to go with 60 seconds. All right, but that's 1 minute. So that's what we're looking for here. All right, so this is going to be our answer here. But notice 2/6, I don't see that here. Well, remember, you got to reduce this fraction. So I have a method to reducing fractions I call the chip away method. The chip away method is divide both the numerator and the denominator by either 2, 3, or 5, whatever number works for both the numerator and the denominator. So you can see that, so it's either 2, 3, or 5. So I'm going to end up using 2 on this one. Remember, my chip away method works great for simplifying fractions. So I divide 2 and I divide 2. 2 divided 2 will be 1. 6 divided 2 is 3. So that now is the final answer. And as you can see, that will give you C. All right. There's another way you could have also done this problem, though, that is also very important. Whenever you try to change a fraction like this we got here, and they want you to change it from like 1/2 of a minute, it could be anything, and they want you to change it to 1 minute or 1 of whatever the unit is, that's also called a unit rate. So there's another way to do this as well. Unit rate, everybody write this down as well. Unit rate, and underline it. Unit rate means divide. All right. Unit rate means divide, and you have to have that memorized and remember that. So I'm going to start with my 1/6, and I'm going to divide by the 1/2, and that will change it to the 1 minute once I'm done dividing this. So I've got 1/6 divide 1/2. So I'm going to keep, change, flip. Keep that, change that to a times, and flip that 1/2. So now I've got 1/6 times 2/1. All right, and once you multiply the tops, 1 times 2, you get 2. 6 times 1, you get 6. And then you reduce 1/3, and we have the same answer either way. All right, so 2 different ways to do it. This is more of a proportional way of thinking, and then this is unit rate means divide method. Alrighty, number 10. Aisha records the outdoor temperature in degrees Fahrenheit each day for 5 days in the table shown below. So she's got Monday, she's got Tuesday, she's got Wednesday, she's got Thursday, and Friday. That looks like it's got cut off on mine, but we will go with 73.4. I think that's what it is. All right, so now it says, what is the mean temperature of Asia's data? All right, so mean. Everybody circle mean and write down the definition to mean. Mean means add up all the numbers and then divide by the number of numbers. So we're going to write 76.5 plus 70.2 plus 63 plus 71.9 plus 73.4. Now I've got all my numbers. How many numbers are there, by the way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And afterwards, after I'm done adding everything, then finally I'm going to divide by 5. All right, so I have it all written down so I can see what I'm looking at, what I'm working with. So now is when I jump on my calculator, since I can see everything, and I type it in. I've got 76.5 plus 70.2. Everybody go ahead and type this in your calculator at the same time, like I'm doing, plus 63 plus 71.9 plus 73.4. All right, now hit equals. You don't want to confuse your calculator. Yeah, we still need to divide by 5, but you want to add all these up and hit equals before you hit the divide 5, just to be safe. You don't want to confuse your calculator with any order of operations. Some calculators follow different rules sometimes, so be careful. Divide 5 equals 71. So what is the mean temperature of Asia's data? It is 71. Now, our answer comes perfectly to a whole number, but sometimes with these problems you're going to get decimals, so be very careful in the FAST. If you were to get a decimal, like let's just say instead of 71 I had gotten 71.36, I just made that up, it's not the right answer, but sometimes they want you to round these. Be very careful in the FAST with rounding. Okay, they're going to tell you to round to a certain number. They'll either tell you to round to the whole number, to the 10th place, or to the 100th place. So, for example, on this one, I'm going to round to the 10th. So I go 71 point, and now I look at the 6. If it's 5 or more, then I raise the score on that 3. So this would round to 71.4. All right, yes, I made all of this up here. But just remember that rounding is very important. You need to know how to round for the FAST, or you will get the problems wrong. All right, so this isn't actually the right answer, though, so I'll cross it off now. All right. All right. Next page, we are on to problem 11 in this part 1 video. Good job. You guys are doing a good job so far. All right. This problem says, what is the value of 1 to the 3rd power? So this is an exponents power problem. So remember, the way powers work is the number on the bottom is called the base. The base is the number you're going to multiply over and over again. So I'm going to write it 1. All right. The power, or the exponent above, that's the number 3. That tells you how many times to multiply the base over and over again. So if I have a 3 here, that means I need to have 3 1s. All right. All right, so 1 times 1 times 1. You can use your calculator if you're confused, but I know most of y'all out there know that 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. All right. Oh, one more time, I guess. Times 1. All right, there we go. Whatever. All right, yeah, 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So that's going to be A. All right. We are not multiplying by 3. It's not 1 times 3. So for any of y'all who picked 3, no. Everyone cross it off. It's definitely not 3. All right? 1 times 3, no. We're not doing 1 times 3. We're doing 1 times 1 times 1. The 3 tells you need to have 3 1s. All right? That's the way powers work. So again, these are called powers, or sometimes also called exponents. And they're pretty easy, but if you don't know what you're doing, then you'll get it wrong. All right. Also, very important to realize, like, I'll give you one more example really quick. Like, sometimes I do it with fractions. So if I had like 1/3 and all of that in a parenthesis and I took that to the second power, well, you're going to apply this 2 to both numbers. So that's going to be 1 to the 2 over 3 to the 2. So then just do the exponent. That's 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. All right? More likely than not on the FAST, they're going to give you a problem that looks like this. So that's why I wanted to give you one extra quick example of this type of problem based on the standard, the exponent standard. All right? This problem here was easy. This one is more likely what you're going to get on the FAST test. All right? So make sure you've got both of these written down on your notes here. All right, we're on to number 12. What is the value of the product of 3.42 and 0.11? Well, guess what, guys? This is as easy as it gets. It's just a calculator problem, all right? So just type it in and don't get this wrong. If you get this wrong, you're probably going to get a level 1 or a 2, so you can't get these ones wrong. You've got to get the easy ones right. All right, I like to think there's easy, medium, and hard problems on the FAST test. And this one's easy as it gets. So I got 0.3762. 0.3762. Go ahead and circle D. All right, and this one is calculator. You can write that down. All right, moving on. We've got number 13. A figure is shown. We've got a triangle, a rectangle, and another triangle. And they want to know what is the area of this entire figure. Well, let's start with the rectangle in the middle. All right, so I've got 5 for this dotted line here. And I've got 3 for the top part. So what is 5 plus 3? Well, that's 8 going all the way from the top all the way to the bottom. All right, 3 plus 5 is 8. Then I've got 2.5 up here. So now I'm just going to jump on my calculator real quick. Remember, area for a rectangle is length times width. All right, so now I'm just going to put 2.5 times 8. And I get 20. So I know that this entire rectangle in the middle is 20. So notice how I'm writing on my test. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to do that with your fast computer screen. And if not, I would use my scrap sheet of paper they give you the fast and draw this out. If you need to, you've got that scrap paper. Don't be afraid to want to see how quickly I can draw this. It's like bam, 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 like that quickly. All right, see that? And then 2.5 and 8, so that's going to be 20 inside there. See what I mean? On your fast test, don't be afraid to use your scrap paper that they give you. All right, so now I got to do these triangles. And notice the triangles are mirror reflections of each other. So once I get one, it'll be the same for both. All right, so I've got 2 here and 5 here. And again, remember, the area for a triangle is 1/2. Area equals 1/2 times base times height. All right, so let's start with the 1/2. 1 divide 2, 1/2 is 0.5. And if you forget, we'll just type it in your calculator. All fractions can turn into decimals. 1 divide 2, 0.5. My students always ask me, and I'm like, what are you talking about, man? They ask me, how do I do fractions on my calculator? And I'm like, what do you mean? There's the divide buttons, like right here. You just hit divide. 1 divide 2 means 1 divide 2. All right. So I've got the 1/2, so that's 0.5. I'll write it up right here. And then I'm multiplying by the base. We'll call that 2. And then the height will be the 5. All right, so now let's type this whole thing in my calculator. 0.5 times 2 times 5. So I go 0.5 times 2 times 5 equals. And my answer is 5 for that one. And then also same and same. They're both 5s. All right, so now add it all up. 5 plus 20 plus 5 is going to be 30. So that answer will be B. Alrighty. See how easy this is, guys? These problems are pretty easy. And this was last year's FAST. All right, pretty simple. All right, so now we're on to 14. It says select all the values. So again, this is a multi-select problem. Select all the values below for j that makes this true. So I've got j plus 2 is less than 17. All right, well, let's just plug these numbers. Let's start with a first, plug it in and see if it's going to be less than 17. So the first one is negative 15 plus 2. Well, negative 15 plus 2, this is a negative, and that's a positive. So the signs are different. So whenever the signs are different, you subtract. So start with your bigger absolute value. 15 minus 2 is going to be 13, and then keep the sign of the bigger absolute value number. 15 is a bigger number, so keep the negative. All right? And if that confuses you, well, type it in your calculator. That's always an option. All right? 15 negative plus 2 equals negative 13. All right, now is that less than 17? Yes. So this one is true. So we go ahead and bubble A. All right, but we still got to test all these other, because remember, this is multi-select. It says select all the answers. So it's not just that. Don't stop there. Again, I'll write multi-select so you can remember. Multi-select. Very careful. You got to check every answer. The next one is negative 10 plus 2 is less than 17. Well, negative 10 plus 2 is going to be negative 8. All right. Again, if you don't know how to do it in your head, use the calculator. Negative 10 plus 2. Negative 8 is less than 17. Yes. Check it. Bubble it in. All right. The next one we've got 0 plus 2. Is that less than 17? 0 plus 2 is 2. Yes, 2 is less than 17. So go ahead and bubble that one. That one was the easiest one so far. All right, up next we've got 15. So 15 plus 2 is less than 17. Well, what's 15 plus 2? That is 17. So is 17 less than 17? No. They are equal, so they're not. So do not. This is a no on that one. So don't bubble it since it's no. All right, and I think the rest of them will be no as well. 17 plus 2 is 19. That's not less. And 20 plus 2 is 22. 22 is not less than 17. All right, so the correct answers were A, B, and C only. D, E, and F, leave those alone. All right, good job. We've got a couple more for part 1 of this video. A few more, rather. All right, so here we go. 15. Malia has 2 bags of oranges and 1 bag of grapefruit. The first bag of oranges weighs 1.4 pounds, and the second bag weighs 2.8 pounds. The bag of grapefruit weighs 2.25 times as much as the 2 bags of oranges combined. What is the weight in pounds of the grapefruit? All right, this one's a little bit tricky. I think this one's kind of stumped me. This is definitely the hardest problem on here so far. So she has 2 bags of oranges and 1 bag of grapefruit. The first bag is 1.4 pounds. The second bag is 2.8. So the bag of grapefruit weighs 2.25 times as much as the 2 bags. All right, so I guess I'll just add these together first. So we get 2.8 plus 1.4. You got to be careful in these word problems. Word problems are the trickiest things on the FAST test in math. So we had 1.4 plus 2.8. All right, so now we got 4.2. All right, so the bag of grapefruit weighs 2.25 times as much as the 2 bags combined. So now we're going to multiply this by 2.25. All right, so I've got 4.2 already, times 2.25 equals 9.45. All right, let's write it into our box. And it's pounds. All right, so there we go. Good job. All right, moving on to 16. Claudia buys a 240-page book. She will read 20 pages of the book every week. Which expression represents how many pages Claudia has left to read after W weeks? All right, so she's got 240 pages in the book. Let's go ahead and start by writing that. That's where she's starting at. Now, when she reads, it's taking away pages that, like, this is how many she has, and every week it's minus 20, minus 20, minus 20. So we're going to subtract here, and we're subtracting the 20. But this thing has a variable with it, because how many weeks did she read? Well, that's just for 1 week. But now she's reading every week. So now this is where we need to include the letter. The 240 is the total pages in the book, minus the 20W. So I see that will be this one right here. All right, 2 more problems for this video. We're getting close. All right, we've got number 17. A right triangle is shown. What is the area of the triangle? Now, remember earlier when I said you have to memorize the formula for the area of a triangle? It's not on the reference sheet. And I think I've said that 3 times already in the last 17 problems. So do you see how important it is? You need to have this formula, 1/2 times base times height, or base times height divide 2. Either way, they'll both work. See how I have them both memorized perfectly like that? You need to have them memorized. All right, so let's use this one on this one. So we got 8 times 7. So we go base 8, height 7, and then divide 2 afterwards. All right, well, let's just go straight to the calculator, because, I mean, it's 8 times 7. That's pretty easy, but let's just type it in. Everybody go straight to your calculator. 8 times 7 equals 56. All right, good, but we still have to divide 2 afterwards. So everyone type in your calculator. 56 divide 2. 28. So what is the area? 28. And the units are units. So I'm going to write the word units there. And it's area. Write this down as well. Area equals second power. All right. So your units need to have a 2 above it. That means that it's area. It's not a linear unit. It's an area. This is area. Area is like if you were going to paint this, it's like how much paint would you need? Or if this was a field and you wanted to put grass in it, like how much grass seed would you need to buy in order to fill out the entire field? See what I mean? That's what area means. Alrighty. So last problem of the day for this part 1 of this video is a very easy one. It says, which decimal is equivalent? Again, the word equivalent means equal. Which decimal is equal to 3 4/5? Well, to start off with, the 3 is our whole number. Keep that, all right? 3 is 3. That doesn't change. All right, now, looking at the fraction, though, earlier I said this as well. You need to have this idea memorized. 4 divide 5, 4 fraction 5. You can change any fraction into a decimal on a calculator very quickly. 4 divide, everybody type it in, 4 divide 5. Go to your calculator and type that in right now. What do you get? All right, I'm waiting. Everybody type it in, 4 divide 5. You. No. 4 divide 5? Yeah, 0.8. Good job. All right, so it's going to be 3.8. You still keep the 3. The 4 divide 5 changes to the 0.8. So the one we're going to pick then is going to be D. Alrighty, so that is all I got today for part 1 of this video on the 6th grade FAST. I would say so far these problems from last year are very easy. If the 2025 FAST is going to look anything like these problems, I fully expect all of you guys to do very well on this test, and you guys can feel confident knowing that you will be successful on this year's FAST. Good luck, and come back for part 2 of the video. Thank you guys, and have a good one.